Saladin Ahmed and Jorge Fornes pit the sick Peter Parker against a murderous nurse as Peter discovers a conspiracy inside the hospital he is staying in. Saladin Ahmed continues his tenure on The Amazing Spider-Man with a one-off story featuring Peter Parker dealing with a strange monster. Now, there really isn't much to the issue apart from that. It's just Peter fighting against his own illness and a monster with the help of MJ, who comes and goes throughout this issue and appears just at the right time to make sure the sick Peter isn't eaten. Because of that, this issue is kind of disappointing and it feels just like an unfinished issue since it just kind of ends and peters out with no sign of the consequences of the hospital hiring a monster that eats patients, or even what the monster was. The issue would have probably benefited if it was just solely based on MJ investigating what is going on in the hospital, which is hinted at exactly what she does, but it all happens off page for some inexplicable reason. Jorge Fornes joins the issue with his art and it's just wonderful. It's got a really great, almost retro look to it that reminds me of the Spider-Man comics from the 60s and 70s. Even having MJ look very much like she did during that time in the book, and even her hair is exactly as it was back then, which is a nice little touch. The Amazing Spider-Man issue 82 was a pretty disappointing one-off issue that felt underwritten and unfinished. There are some good ideas and concepts there that are never fully realised, making the issue feel like a stopgap as the Beyond storyline takes a brief break for some reason. I'm going to give this issue a 5 out of 10. The Amazing Spider-Man issue 82 finds Peter moved into a new room in the hospital as the nurse is called down to another room for an emergency. He tells Peter he'll bring him some food soon as he is left to himself. Peter finds himself more tired than he realized, but before he can go to sleep, his neighbor calls out to him, wanting to remove the curtain between them. The man does so, introducing himself as Rico, telling Peter he was watching the highlights from the baseball game, hoping Peter caught it. Peter knows he's been a bit too busy to watch as another nurse arrives, telling Rico that he's being moved. He tells Peter goodbye as his bed is squeaked out of the hallway, leaving Peter to get some much needed rest. Just as he's about to fall asleep, MJ arrives. He tries to sit up but the pain is too much, so MJ tells him to stop. Soon their room is invaded by an angry woman looking for Rico. The nurse outside says that there is no one in that room by that name as she demands to know where her husband is. Peter knows the orderly is lying since her husband was in this room. MJ waves it off as just a mistake, and the hours these nurses work, it's easy to get confused. She tells Peter to get some rest as he almost immediately falls asleep. Soon a sickly looking nurse comes by, telling MJ that visitation hours are over thanks to some special circumstances. Peter is sound asleep, so she decides to leave to investigate these special circumstances. Later on, Peter awakens calling for MJ, but his new neighbor tells him that she is gone. She talks about how she is meant to be discharged in 2 hours when again the sickly nurse comes by, wanting to take the woman away. He tells her she isn't being discharged thanks to some special circumstances as she is wheeled out of the room, demanding to be allowed to go home. Peter sits up to try and stop the man from leaving, but he is in too much pain, causing him to black out. Soon he reawakens to find the nurse telling him it's time for him to come with him. Peter demands to know where the other patients have gone, but he can't sit up or move thanks to the pain. The nurse knows that he's quite noisy, increasing the dosage of his sedative, telling Peter that he has become too troublesome. Peter falls unconscious again and later awakens as the man takes him into a dilapidated basement of the hospital, telling Peter that he's a curious young man, wanting to show him his favorite place. Peter is taken into a dark operating theater where the man transforms into a huge monster, wanting to show Peter his true shape. Peter notices the bloody remains of the other patients as he is paralyzed, unable to move thanks to the pain, as the creature says in the dark is where he feasts and only there, away from the light, is where he can be his true self. Mary Jane soon arrives, glad to know the beast's weakness is light, so she activates her phone's camera flash, blinding the monster and burning it, but it slaps the phone out of her hand. MJ escapes the creature, pushing over some cabinets to stop it, but nothing stops it from grabbing her. Luckily, MJ finds a wrench, smashing it over the hand of the creature and freeing herself. She heads into one of the operating theaters, plugging in one of the surgery lights and telling the monster he just tried to eat the wrong guy. She activates the lights, which burn the creature into ashes. Peter arrives, so MJ rushes to help him, demanding to know why he is out of bed. Peter soon falls unconscious again as MJ knows that someday he's going going to learn how to rest, and if he doesn't, she's going to kill him. Meanwhile, in the New York sewers, Colleen and Misty track something with the Beyond tech, impressed with how it's working so well. Misty wants to know how they were talked into doing another dirty mission for Maxine Danger, so Colleen says that she was told she gets to keep the car this time. Misty reminds her that she totaled that car, but Colleen reveals that she was given a new one and she wants to wreck this one as well. Soon Colleen comes face to face with the Lizard, their target, telling Misty that she'll do it even if it means they have to bring in the Lizard.